Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at upnradio.com.
Hey, everybody. Richard listens on sports. Today is an exciting day. First time doing the show without our illustrious co-host, Peter Sobey, who's working on his Vids app. And today we have a guest not like any other, and one who I've known indirectly for probably about 13 years. But to be sitting here next to him is a real honor and a privilege. And we have 3 things in common and at least 4 things not in common, which I'm sure you can guess what those are. But without further ado, our guest today is 4-time Olympic gold medalist, swim school owner, and I think he has 15 gold medals and 2 silver medals, but I'm sure he'll correct me along the way.
That would have been nice.
And he's also, we won't share what we have in common just yet. But without further ado, a gentleman who has a lot to teach us about resilience and character and excellence in athletics, Mr. Lenny Krayzelburg.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today and taking time out of your busy schedule and all that you do. We're going to get in depth today about Lenny's journey, what led him to swimming, and what eventually his journey to Olympic gold, and to be able to maintain that over 2 Olympics, and his current works as well in giving back to the community. Real quick, but Lenny and I came across each other with work with Special Maccabees charity, and I just want to say what an uplifting thing it is to have step onto the court and to see to be able to see Lenny giving medals to special needs athletes. And I just want to touch base quickly on what led you to that charity and how you got involved and why Special Maccabees.
Well, really, it was by accident. Because of my swim school and where it's located, the Westside Jewish Community Center, my office is located on the 2nd floor right next to the gym. And I just walked in one day into the gym and I saw this pretty special program for special needs people playing basketball, and it just kind of hit close to heart. It was incredible to watch how they excelled and how they tried, and the smiles and everything that you want to see in a person when they participate in something and are given opportunity. And for me, it was very natural. I asked Jeff, who's the person that was in charge of it, how I can get involved, and it's been a couple of years, and really it's a pleasure, and it's really an honor to be there and to be part of it, and to watch these people basically just having a smile on their face. And
I mean, so many people must ask you, what it's like to the moment when you have the gold medal placed around your neck, and I just getting to see these special needs athletes when they get it, it's like an out-of-body experience. So maybe you can tell us later about what it's like when you get your own gold medal, or if it's the same when you have multiple. But what's it like for you to be able to give that to these young people who don't get to play very much and don't have the same opportunities?
Well, for me, it's just to be there and to be in their presence. It's really it's special. It's gratifying for me. It gives me it grounds me, and allows me to appreciate everything that I have in my life, everything that, just being born able and being able to excel at the highest level of sports. And just to be part of it and to watch it, it's really unique, and it's something, it's hard to really describe because we all define success in our own way. And for them, it's success, and it's just wonderful to watch that.
Yeah, it's amazing how they all show up for this event. It's, I think, 12 years in the running, and it's just with tremendous sportsmanship. They wait for each other to take a shot, and they bring all their families out. And for them, this is the Olympics. Yeah. Yeah, so it's interesting that you say that, Lenny, about high-performing athletes and doing charitable works or the grounding that they get out of it, because it provides something for the average sports fan in seeing an athlete kind of remain grounded over time. It must be so hard to stay focused and committed for the length of time that you have.
Yeah, it's definitely, you're always focused on striving to be the best you can be in your sport, and obviously reach the top and be able to stay there and excel when you're at the top, which is one of the challenges, because there's always someone, looking to, take you off your throne, I guess, if you can say that. But reality is that I think it's also important to realize and appreciate when you're at the highest level of sports, what it takes to get there, and number of people that help you to get there, and understand and stay grounded. Understand that it's not all about you, and that there are people around you that care for you and support you and want to see you succeed. And I think if you are able to really realize that and process that in your mind, you also realize that the impact you can have on others, same impact that people around you made you successful, that type of impact you can have on others. And, obviously, for me, it comes from my upbringing, my parents, the values they instilled in me. And that's something that I've always appreciated and was always thankful to my parents for that. And, something that I live by every single day today. And I appreciate having an opportunity and being in a position where I can make an impact like that and be part of this organization and a couple other charities that I work with.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I want to ask more about your parents. Your father is Oleg, correct? If I'm right. And I want to get a little bit more into your roots as much as you'll share with us, as we're always fascinated in the guests we have on our show and sharing with our listeners about resiliency, about your early journey coming over from Odessa, and how that may have played into your focus and commitment from an early age. But real quick, before we get more, no, we're not ready yet. Okay, keep rolling. Thank you. So we will get into Oleg right now. We're going to have our fitness wellness tip a little bit later. We're having some technical difficulties from probably Newark International. Great place to spend the day. Caitlin's on our way to scenic Ireland, so look for some photos from her. But back to our guest, Lenny. So was swimming something you discovered before you came over to the States, or... Yeah, it was.
Yeah, swimming was definitely something that I discovered very early on. Well, one of the main reasons is that the Odessa city where I was born in Ukraine, it's on the Black Sea. So we were almost required to know how to swim because you had to enjoy the water in the summer times. We spent a lot of time during summer months living by the beach, so knowing how to swim was a prerequisite, I guess.
So the Black Sea is actually... not black. It's quite clear and beautiful.
It's very clear and beautiful. Well, it depends in terms of beautiful. Sometimes it was nice and clean. Sometimes there was some debris. Let's put it that way. Just depending on what some of the factories were putting into.
Oh wow.
Into the.
And was it rough and bumpy terrain?
No, not at all. Not at all. It was actually pretty smooth. So I started to kind of learn how to swim early on. And then probably around the age of 4 or 5 is when my dad really decided that he wanted me to be an athlete. I think majority of the parents growing up in Soviet Union were fans of sports. One thing that I always say in my story is that there are 2 things that really mattered to Soviet Union during, the Cold War years. You had to be better than U.S. in military and sports. So obviously there was a lot of priority put on sports, and my dad was a big sports fan, big soccer fan, and he actually wanted me to play soccer. And but unfortunately, at age of 4 or 5, when he decided, get me enrolled, I was too young for soccer. So really, the only sport that I could do at that time was swimming. So he got me into a local club, just kind of start learning how to swim, and it evolved from there.
Was he a swimmer as well? Or?
No, my dad was not an athlete at all. Big sports fan, but not an athlete. And but got me into swimming, and I liked it early on, and then probably around the age of 8, 9, when I was starting 4th grade, is when I was already selected into a special group of kids that back in the Soviet system thought that had a potential.
So let me slow you down right there,
Okay.
because this is
No
an
problem.
important differential that happens that I always ask athletes about. So you start at this early age, but you mentioned you enjoyed it. So how did you experience that enjoyment, like from 5 to 9? Because to go on the journey from like 9 years old and become like on this track is probably not very easy developing as an adolescent. So it probably really helps. We've heard from some famous female tennis players who grew up in Eastern Bloc countries, that at least they really they noticed themselves like loving to hit the ball off the wall. Like, was there an experience like that for you with swimming?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, once I learned how to swim, it was definitely fun. And again, until about age of 9, there wasn't much pressure on me. So I swam maybe 2-3 times a week, maybe an hour or so. It was very laid back, and I think it certainly helped, eventually once I got really serious. Because once I got serious, especially in the Soviet sports system, it was over the top serious. And we can talk now, or we can.
Okay. All right. We're going to take a quick break now that we got Caitlin back online from Newark, is cooperating with us. So Lenny's going to hold us at 9 years old, and we're going to quickly cut to Caitlin. We are live for our fitness, live via Zoom.
Hello.
Hi, Lenny. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you as well.
So, I mean, it's incredible what, reading your story and learning all about you. And one of the things I did notice is that, and well, it's probably normal for any athlete, is that injuries happen upon us, and I did read that you had a pretty major shoulder injury. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I actually had 3 shoulder surgeries.
Oh my goodness.
During
So
my career.
Can you tell us and our audience, when you had that injury, how did that impact your training regimen, including, how you handled your nutrition at that time? Because you were competing for the Olympics, that's correct?
Yes, that's correct. And I love that you're asking this question, because I had, during my injury, I had a couple of really interesting life-changing moments when it comes to recovering from injury, and also my diet during the recovery phase. So after my first surgery was after Sydney Games in 2001. I hurt my shoulder, and something didn't feel right. Eventually ended up seeing an orthopedic doctor, and I tore a labrum in my shoulder. So had to have a shoulder surgery, and what happened was, the rehab was supposed to be about 4 months. Never really dealt with a serious injury before. So when I started to feel good, I started to push hard, because that was the only way I knew how to train. I never had an experience taking time recovering slowly after surgery. And I jumped into it too quickly, and obviously it felt okay, it felt fine, but a couple of months later, the same feeling came back. And obviously I re-injured the shoulder again. And then next year, I hurt my knee playing, actually not playing, running in a treadmill, and I tore my ACL. So after the surgery, I ended up not being able to train for about 4 months. But my eating habits did not change. So I went from being about 190, which was my race weight, to about 225. Wow. And it was eye-opening for me. Because I was always under, I trained so much. I trained 5 hours a day, probably burned at least 5,000 calories. I never paid attention to my diet leading into the first Olympics in 2000. I could eat anything and I would burn it off. And all of a sudden, here I am.
No attention. Oh my goodness.
Yes. And all of a sudden, I'm here sitting 4 months not being able to train, and the weight is going up. And also the fact is that I'm older, so it's harder to lose that weight once you start getting back into training. And that's the first time I really figured out that I need to start really paying attention to my diet, watching diet, becoming a student of what I have to eat in order to, first of all, lose weight, but also be able to maintain high peak performance during training as well as competitions, of course.
Well, right. So, your first experience that you gained weight so quickly because you weren't focusing on your diet, really, you were just, training, correct?
Yes.
That must have, when you started gaining weight and not being able to work out, that must have had some kind of mental impact on you as well, right? And Richard, I'm sure you can, kind of chime in here and give your expertise. But for me right now, I'm even going through a knee injury. Surprising that you had a knee injury too. And I haven't been able to work out at a normal capacity for more than 2 months. And I've just had to focus on my diet as well. And mentally, that's tough for me. So, how do you manage, the mental part with your physical? And Richard, is there any recommendations you can add to, kind of the scenario on how to mentally handle these situations?
Well, yes. It was definitely a learning process for me. What I've always, and it's my personality in general, I look for a positive in every negative situation. And what I've realized after a while is not being able to be as active as I was, or not being able to train as much, was I need to become a student of how I need to eat. And smaller portions, better meals, more nutrients, but also being able to do something. So if, for example, I had a knee injury, so I couldn't run, but I can do, I can still lift weights, or I can still do something. They have those elliptical machines. I don't remember. We just use your arms. You sit stationary, but you can use your arms. So I always looked for other ways to continue to stay in shape a little bit. Of course, I wasn't training 5 hours a day, and of course, I couldn't burn as many calories, but ultimately, it was a learning experience going through this process, and understanding that I have to be patient. That's ultimately it comes from experience, because I had made the mistake of jumping in too fast after my first injury. I realized that this time around, I just need to be patient and take time and believe in the process and be smart about it.
Yeah. So Richard, how do you help athletes who are going through these situations? Because I know it comes a lot.
I think I got most of your question. I'm really curious about if also the environment the athlete's in, like if Lenny was at USC at the time or with the Olympic trainers, and sometimes when there's an injury, athletes can tend to withdraw from their team, or because they're not training regularly, they don't have that same access. So, because I could just imagine now, having walked through USC's facility, at least in the current day, that they would be like on top of you, like, holding calipers up to your body fat line. So.
A lot has changed in 17 years, I will tell you that.
So, right. So perhaps it's the modern day that's shifted, but that there's a tendency to, especially if somebody's been athletic, like we're talking about, from the age of 5 and 9 competitively, and all of a sudden you're injured, sometimes you have to go through this process of learning. Only the absence of performance makes you aware that something needs to change. And some of that happens for athletes' injury. Sometimes it's age. But roles tend to change, and there's this kind of process of development. And I'm, curious about if there was, somebody in Lenny's life that helped him make that adjustment or that he went to, or if he had to make it on his own.
Actually, I had to make it on my own. We really didn't have that type of support, at least not in the years that I was training at USC. And again, after the Olympics, I was no longer a student athlete. I graduated USC in '98, so I was a volunteer assistant coach, so I could train with the team. But I really had nothing to do in terms of getting support from the athletic department as a student athlete. But even then, I just felt that, I have a motto that I live by, and it's, if it's going to be, it's up to me. So I want to control my own destiny. And ultimately, if you're not going to take things in your own hands, then it's hard to expect results that you want.
Yes, and then how do you balance that with, it's counterintuitive, right? Like, you're injured, like you said, the first minute you feel better with getting back in there and performing the same way you knew beforehand. So.
Yeah, and that's the big challenge. And again, I had to learn that through the process. But something that I speak a lot about to young athletes nowadays, when they ask me questions about injury, or if they're not injured, but just generally talking to them, if you do encounter injury, you have to be smart about it. Do not rush in. Be patient. Do your homework. Focus on rehab. If you're going to have those fundamentals daily, thinking about that, then your recovery process is going to be so much better, and the avoidance of re-injuring yourself, it's going to be definitely higher chance of avoiding another injury.
They're lucky to have you as a coach. The other answer I give for your question, Caitlin, is that a karate sensei once did for me, and I try and ask the same question I encourage athletes to ask themselves, which is it discomfort or is it pain when you're recovering from an injury? Because, right, if you're noticing uncomfortability, maybe you continue your training and you build strength in the surrounding areas. But if it's pain, right, we have to listen to the injury. We have to listen to our bodies as well. So it's really good to have somebody in there with you, whether it be a sensei or a coach or somebody who can help you know your own limits and knows how hard you push and can kind of gradually build you up. Like building for a marathon. You don't just go out and run 26 miles, right? We build up. So it must be really hard for someone who's used to like pouring it on in the pool for 5 hours a day to be using a hand bike. But if that's exactly what the body needs.
Yeah, but that's the adjustment you got to make, and you got to play with the card that's dealt.
That's right. That's right. So any other tips for you? What do you have for us nutrition-wise today, Caitlin, when you're on your trip to Ireland here and you're suffering from a flu? Can you hear us? No?
She's stuck.
Frozen with a smile, at least. Looks like you. All right, well, we appreciate you joining us, Caitlin, and we hope you have a wonderful flight, and we thank you for your excellent questions, and we look forward to seeing you more in the weeks to come. All right. Caitlin Patricia Weiler, everyone. So thank you. That was an indirect lead-in to Lenny and his injury, and we got – okay, I think she might be back. But so we were talking a little bit about so was your dad an early coach, or was he just kind of led you to the water?
No, he wasn't a coach at all. It was just literally just led me to the water. Everything back in the Soviet years, everything, and it's similar like that nowadays in Europe in terms of sports clubs. So you have various sports that are under a specific sports club, and in Soviet Union during those years, it was the same thing. So I was attached to a army sports club. My dad was a big soccer fan of the army, of the soccer club of that in our city, that was under the army base. So he took me to that club at 5 to learn how to swim, and then at 9 I was selected into a special group. It was about 35 of us, and we trained 5 hours a day.
Wow.
2 hours in the morning before school, went to school for the whole day, and then another 3-hour practice in the afternoon. We lifted weights by 10.
Wow.
So it was quite intense. And but what was unique about it, my swim team, that was my school class. So when we were selected for that group of kids, the selection was kids born in the year 1975, and they put us all together into a school class and into a training group. So it was definitely interesting. It was extremely challenging.
Did it create closeness and a bond with the group, or just a lot of competition?
A big closeness, really, just because we spent so much time together, really from 6 a.m. until probably 6, 7 p.m., really, until we all kind of went our separate ways. So there was definitely a big closeness with the group, with a lot of the big kids.
And were you allowed to were there celebrations too, or is it like, no teen partying for you guys?
I don't know if you team party at 9 years old too much. I guess that I left that until I went to USC. But
you
no,
made it up later on.
Yeah, I made it up later on.
So fast forward to you're 13. Was it an abrupt decision? Was it due to the political climate in Russia?
Yeah, it was definitely a decision. My parents were thinking about it for a bit. Obviously, growing up Jewish in Soviet culture and facing some of the anti-Semitism, and also my parents understanding that the opportunities for their kids, I have a younger sister, growing up would be limited. So definitely a decision to come to the U.S. was something on their minds. And sometime around 87, 88 is when, Gorbachev took power, and there was that agreement that they can open up, political asylum to Jews in Soviet Union. That's when my parents kind of jumped on the opportunity. So we left at the end of 88, went through the whole immigration process, living in Vienna for a couple of weeks, then Rome, Italy for a couple of months until we came here to the States. And I was 13 at that time, middle of 89.
Good memories of that transition, or was it really abrupt on you?
It was good memories. It was challenging, for sure, because there was a lot of unknown. I think as I've gotten older and became an adult, I've only then started to realize how challenging it was for my parents. Because as a kid, you don't really, you go with the punches. You don't really care. And especially when your parents create a really warm and loving environment, even though it's really hard and challenging.
Right.
So we, both my mom, my sister, and myself, never really felt the challenges. So my parents really sheltered that well, and but I know it was challenging for them, especially when you're about to move to a new country and you have absolutely no idea what's going to happen tomorrow, and you got two, coming up teenage kids, and also not knowing the language. So they definitely encountered a lot of challenges.
I'm really glad you highlighted that, Lenny, because I've been referencing to a lot of my clients a podcast by, I don't know if you've heard of a addiction psychiatrist named Gabor Mate. And he talks a lot about attachment, early attachment, and about the difference between trauma and traumatic. And an experience like we're talking about, like we know so many athletes that come from another country and have to experience that transition. And although the life may be pretty well cared for, the experience of traumatic may be, well, was I cared for? Was there somebody there to greet me and welcome me when I came to the new country? How did the people treat me?
Right.
So the fact that your parents were so warm and supportive sounds like it provided a lot of resiliency to make that transition into a whole new life at a really sensitive age.
Yes. I mean, definitely my parents' support made a big difference. But I also tell you, I've really been fortunate encountering a lot of really good-hearted people along the way. Even when I started at Team Santa Monica, 2 weeks living in LA, just the way the coaches welcomed me with open arms and understood, and the parents, swim meets are, all day weekend, engagements basically. Yes. And my parents couldn't go to swim meets because they had to work, had to put food on the table. And how welcoming and helpful the parents of the kids on the team were to come pick me up from my house and take me to competitions and then bring me back. It was incredible. And when I talked earlier about realizing that success is never all by yourself, there's so many people involved. This is just one small example of people that really knew nothing about me. It was just some immigrant kid that came to a club, spoke zero English. I spoke no English. I remember teammates wanted to have conversations with me about, who I was, what it was like growing up in Soviet Union. Nothing. I couldn't put two words together. So it was definitely challenging times. And a lot of it was also on my own because, as I said, my parents had to work. So they couldn't take me to practices. So everything is on my own. I had to travel to Santa Monica myself, come back later in the evening, all on my own, kind of in the new land, new city. But ultimately,
so is there any really funny story from that time about trying to be understood or having somebody make a real effort to welcome you when it was not easy?
Well, it was more just not necessarily a funny story, but just experience in itself. I remember just sitting in the locker room and guys are trying to talk to me and ask questions, and I'm like literally just spreading my arms. I can't put two words together, and it was interesting. But I do, now that I do remember something funny, and it had to do specifically with swimming. So when we came here and I started to train, I was swimming in a 25-yard pool. And in Europe, there's no yards. It's all meters. Nice. And the distance is different. It looks the same, but 25 meters is 25 yards is 22 meters. Uh-huh. So I'm swimming all these practices, and I'm swimming so fast compared to what I was used to just a few months back.
Feel pretty good.
I'm feeling pretty good, and I can't understand. I just missed about 3 months of training because I was going through this immigration process. Didn't get in the water much, and all of a sudden I'm in the pool and I'm swimming all these great times. and then someone actually told me, what, the pool is shorter. So it was a good experience for me. And I thought I was getting all better.
That's brilliant. That's great. Yeah. So you were swimming. It was a club soccer team in Santa Monica.
Swim team.
A swim team. And when did you figure out, this could lead me to collegiate level and beyond?
Yeah, that actually didn't happen for a couple of years later. Swimming. The club team in Santa Monica, I swam there for about a year, and I went through that phase when a lot of 14, 15-year-olds that are involved in sports go through that. It's became boring, and my friends are doing so many cool other things, and then I have to finish school and then take a bus for an hour going to Santa Monica, and I'm not getting better, I'm not improving, so I just want to quit. And I really thought about quitting, and my dad really was having a hard time with that. And he really talked me out of it. In fact, what we did, we ended up finding another team at the Westside Jewish Community Center, which was closer to home. We were living in West Hollywood at that time, and we thought, why don't I go kind of change the scenery a little bit and see if it's going to help. And I did, and I joined the team at the Westside Jewish Community Center. And, it wasn't the same level of a team that I was used to at Santa Monica, and the trainings weren't as long, 4 days a week only. So obviously the quality of training wasn't the same, and I didn't produce any results. So I swam basically. I went to Fairfax High School, didn't have a swim team. So I swam for a couple of years, basically treading water. Did
it become more enjoyable though, with less pressure at that time? Or?
It became a little bit more enjoyable. I was just going through the motions, and quite honestly, I was doing it because I didn't want to disappoint my dad. I wasn't necessarily doing it for myself. I was doing it for my dad. I knew how passionate he was and how much he wanted me to continue to swim. And I also always remembered, he reminded me when I was a kid in Odessa, my coach told him one day that Lenny was born to be a backstroker. So that thought always stuck in his mind, and he didn't really want to, I guess, didn't want me to give up on, on that comment that my coach made when I was 9 years old. And I basically just treaded water all throughout my high school years. I was not good enough to get any scholarships to any universities. So literally my second semester of my senior year, I ended up going to Santa Monica College just so I can take classes. I have no path, no direction what I'm going to do. I walk around Santa Monica College and I find a pool there, and I knock on the door of the coach there, Stu Blumkin, and tell him, Stu, I'm so and so, and I swim at the JCC, and I'm enrolling in classes. And I told him times, and they were for community college, they were okay. And he loved it that someone just walked and knocked on his door. And I ended up starting Santa Monica College. I swam with him that 1 year, and he definitely saw the talent and potential. And
is this when your backstroke was discovered? Because that's kind of your calling card,
right. Well, yeah. I mean, I kept swimming backstroke all through high school, or high school years. Backstroke is what stood out for me. And then I did really well my freshman year at Santa Monica. I improved quite a bit. I ended up breaking the collegiate national record in 200 backstroke. And then Stu really felt like I needed to go and train somewhere else or have an opportunity to swim at Division I. So he called Mark Schubert at USC and told him, Mark, I got this kid that's pretty raw but talented. I want to see if you can give him an opportunity to train with Trojan Swim Club off season in the summertime. And Mark said, yeah, sure. If he can hang with our guys, he can come in and do it. And I was so honored, just an opportunity to train with Division I athletes, and then some of the swimmers that were on that team were, world champions and Olympians and the NC2A finalists. So it was a really elite group of swimmers. I certainly did not belong with them at the time I walked in the pool deck. But one thing about me, I was never afraid of challenges, and I was always willing to work hard. That's one thing that I take a lot of pride in. And I started to train, and I started to work in the summertime with that group, and swam well at 2 competitions. And by the end of the summer, so we're talking about two and a half months later, Mark Schubert gets me in his office and goes, Lenny, I want to talk to you, because I'd like to offer you a full ride to USC.
Wow.
And
how does that moment rank?
It was an incredible moment, considering the fact that someone that has been a head coach of the U.S. Olympic team for 4 Olympics and has seen it pretty much all, pulls you in his office and gives you that type of an offer. It was incredible. I mean, obviously for me personally, also for my family, to know that I can go to USC, get my education paid for. But what really, in addition, stood out, he said, Lenny, you can be the best backstroker in the world. And that really, opened up my eyes. When someone with that type of a coaching resume tells you that, then he's obviously seeing something in me. And that really hit me home. And it was 1994. And that was the time where really my kind of career took that turn, where I decided to really pursue or really refocus myself on just pursuing that dream.
Someone believing the prophecy.
Yeah,
helped.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And having someone at that high level believe in you, it sounds like really freed you up to commit.
Yeah, and that's what it takes. Sometimes you need someone else to tell you that they believe in you, and that's extremely powerful, especially those that seen it all, that they can tell you that. For an athlete, it's incredible. I'm a big believer of confidence, and confidence builds just like snowmen. it continues to build when you put in the work ethic, and when you put in the work, but when also there are right people that continue to build that confidence in you by seeing what you do every single day. And certainly Mark built that foundation, and then for the rest of it, I'm not going to say it was easy, because it was an incredible road to get where I got, incredibly challenging, but the foundation was built. And as I mentioned before, hard work was never an issue with me. I love pain. I really do. I tell that story all the time to kids. My most gratifying days were the days when I came from my second practice at 5 o'clock in the afternoon after practice, and I would fall on the couch and I would have no energy to get up. I knew I had a productive day.
You knew you gave every last.
It's an extremely gratifying feeling.
So I know we have a limited time. I want to make sure we get to time to talk about Lenny Krayzelburg Swim Academy, but I'm sure our listeners want to hear a little bit about, if you can, synopsis of your Olympic experiences. What was it like to compete with some of the best in the world? And did you believe going in that a gold medal was possible, let alone 4?
Well, of course I believed. I
you have to believe, yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing was interesting, because for '96 Olympics, I actually had an opportunity to get a Ukrainian citizenship. For around '94, I wasn't a U.S. citizen yet, so I could have gotten a Ukrainian citizenship, and I adamantly said no. I wanted to represent U.S. because, first of all, it's the country that kind of gave me that opportunity. But more than anything, I wanted to represent the best country in the world, because I knew if I can make the Olympic team for the U.S., I would have a great shot of winning the gold medal. So I was obviously favored going into the Sydney Olympics. I was ranked number 1 in the world for a couple of years in both of my events. And, everyone was talking about Lenny winning Olympic gold medals. But those that follow sports know that nothing is given. So anything can happen on any given day. And one thing for me, I never took that for granted. I've always realized that anything can happen. And that's always the challenge being on the top, that everyone else is gunning for you. So I was confident, though. I was confident in myself. I was confident in the work that I put in leading into the games. And, I felt pretty comfortable until the night before my first final, the 100 backstroke final. And that was when it really hit me. It hit me that I was on the verge of winning an Olympic gold medal. And I went through quite a journey to get here. And that tomorrow night at 7:30, I have to be good for 53 seconds.
Wow.
So that moment really...
Not a lot of sleep that night.
Not a lot of sleep that night, exactly. That moment really challenged me. Challenged me in terms of just being able to calm myself down and to be able to...
What helped you right there? Because that's a rare moment that few get to experience.
I don't even remember. I don't remember. It's been so long. What helped me? Eventually, I guess I've never had problems with sleep. So I guess I fell asleep eventually. But again, it was definitely the moment, the thought about being good. And why I say 7:30, I was always a perfectionist when it came to competitions. I knew exactly when my warm-up started. I knew exactly when I needed to be out of the pool. I knew exactly when I was needed to be ready. I always took a very professional approach. It wasn't just getting in the pool and moving my arms. It was everything else leading up to it, because you needed to have that prepared state of mind 24 hours a day. So I knew that at that time tomorrow I needed to be great. And although I was incredibly nervous, I felt really comfortable once I stepped on the pool deck, and that was my environment. That was the environment I was so used to.
Any one of the medals more gratifying than another?
Probably the first one. Definitely the first one, just because it's a first Olympic gold medal. It's, never, no one would ever take that away from me. It was earned, honestly, through hard work and a lot of perseverance, and I'm very proud of that. And, all the other ones mean just as much, but the first one is always, the best one.
And you're continuing to swim. We joked about 3 things in common. So besides our birth year and our work with Special Maccabees, is that I was actually an alternate for basketball for the 2017 Maccabea games. So not swimming unless you give me some really good coaching for the next one. So you competed and won the team gold in Israel last year. Is that correct?
Well, we swam just an exhibition relay versus Israel, so U.S. versus Israel. But it was pretty cool, though, just to be in Israel again and to participate in Maccabea and just seeing this incredible event where Jewish athletes from all over the world come and really celebrate our heritage and do that through sports. I mean, that sports is that one medium that really connects everyone in every, really, I feel, any walk of life.
Yes.
So it was just a great experience to swim that relay. It was an exhibition relay, but just to be part of it and having another 2 Olympians on it, Jason Lezak and Anthony Irvin, and another good friend of ours, Alex Blavatnik, was a great supporter of Maccabi USA and a big swimming college. It was just great to be part of it and swim the Israelis.
Yeah, and I know Maccabi USA is following us here today. So any chance you'll be involved in the next games and continue?
Well, if I'm staying in shape, which I plan on, listen, I think it's a great organization, and they do a lot to promote sports and promote Judaism. And, for me, that's really important. So being part of it is always great.
Okay, so we got the 5-minute warning here. So first, Lenny, maybe share with us a little bit about your projects, how you've channeled your swimming career into educating others, and any other things you're working on right now that people can stay in touch with and stay connected to you in your work.
Well, Lenny Krayzelburg Swim Academy is definitely something that I've put a lot of focus and effort in after I retired from the Olympics after 2004 games, and it's really something that I've been incredibly proud of, just as much as my athletic career is, because through our swim academy and what we do and the impact we make on young kids and teaching them water safety, it's incredibly powerful and impactful. And again, I'm just privileged to be in the position that I could translate my success that I achieved as an athlete and be able to transition it into doing something so important for others, and also, quite honestly, be able to make a living. So there's so many things that fell into place for me to continue to pursue this. And over the years, since we started in 2005, we've opened up 14 various affiliates around the country. I own 2 locations in LA, and we've had 12 other partners around the country that are running our program. And we're embarking on a brand new phase where we're going to start franchising our swim academy all over the country, which is pretty exciting. And it's been really a special project and a passion for me for so many years, and also be able to have people that work with me that are just as passionate and are really helping to get our message across and impact so many young lives.
Yeah, and having been to your school, to the school, and swimming at the family swim time, it's a great energy and a great place to even bond if you're not even swimming competitively. Do any athletes approach you to mentor them when trying to get to the higher level still?
No, actually, I haven't had too much experience mentoring, the up-and-coming athletes. I think USA Swimming does a really good job in that transition, having great coaching and great support around USA Swimming for up-and-coming athletes. I certainly have done my share of swim clinics and speaking engagements and talking to youth about the sport of swimming and what you want to focus on and things that you have to keep in mind to be successful. But not just in swimming, I think in general, just in whatever the kids decide to do in life, whatever career path they choose and the college education they want to get. I think through my experience and success that I've been able to achieve, I think the message is the same, no matter what you do. I think, the hard work and perseverance and dedication and being passionate about what you do are extremely important, are definitely a prerequisite to success.
Absolutely. Any messages in particular for those individuals maybe like yourself out there. We know the United States hopefully still maintains its open arms to other cultures, despite some changes in our political landscape here. If you're a young person or family coming to this country, any messages for that young adult out there who may be struggling with language and struggling to fit in and to find their direction?
Yeah, absolutely. The message, of course, is to believe in your dreams and never give up. And the reality is, this is still the greatest country in the world, and there are always opportunities here. And it's just a matter of you finding what your passion is, and understand that life is all about ups and downs. And just stay the course. Stay the course. Believe in yourself, and know that you're always giving your best. And understand that sometimes you're going to struggle. Maybe a lot of times you're going to struggle. But ultimately, if you're consistent and persistent with what you want to accomplish, you will accomplish that.
Amazing. Instagram, Lenny K4G. Any other manners you'd like to be contacted professionally?
On Facebook at Lenny OK. Those are just the two social medias. And my swim academy page is lennykswim.com. We do some wonderful stuff, and again, I'm so excited to be part of it.
Yes, and thank you for allowing us to share our gifts with you. It's a real honor. I don't think we've had one Olympian, let alone a 4-time Olympic gold medalist, and to be able to participate in any way in a charity event with you. I see the inspiration it gives to young teenagers who we know have a tougher time doing anything besides Snapchatting and surfing their own interests. They get inspired by your participation, and we appreciate you being here. So again, we are live in 2 weeks. Our next guest in 2 weeks will be Zach Kyle, and he runs a company, Logistics Support, and he hires only athletes. So we're going to get to understand what is it that he sees in athletes and how that translates to the sales force and the business world. What is their work ethic? How does their focus and determination? In fact, 2 of them, I think, were our slam dunkers at the
nice.
at the event that we had.
That's great.
So we'll get to share some footage of their slam dunk competition that they also gave up their time for charity. So again, Lenny, we thank you for being here. We thank all our listeners on Facebook Live. You can now, good exciting news, you can download us on iTunes, usually up within 24 hours, or Spotify for those of you who prefer that medium. And please download, share the link with your friends. Let them hear and share Lenny Krayzelburg's journey and story. And for any of you out there who would like to share your story with us, we welcome your contact. Richard Listens on Instagram, Facebook /Richard Listens, and Richard at richardlistens.com. Thanks again, everybody. That's a wrap.